Hey everybody. Welcome to Mystery Day. I can't believe it's this time of year. I am Romi Hill, and this is my first live um, for the first clue of my 2024 mystery, Way Leads On to Way. And I am so excited to see you all here in the comments. And I cannot believe that this day has actually come. So, welcome everybody. And hi. I can see everybody is here from all different areas. I am so excited. Um, so, for anybody who might come by and wonder what a mystery, what I on earth I'm talking about, this is a mystery shawl. So, that means that there are five clues. So, clues. Um, and that means it's a pattern that no one knows what it looks like yet, except for me. And it's like sectioned up into five pieces. So once a week for 5 weeks, you will get one clue at 10 a.m. Pacific time on Friday. And then in the afternoon, there's going to be a YouTube going over that clue. So there are no spoilers. I just want everybody to know I don't have any spoilers in these YouTubes. So I'm just going to show you the techniques and show you how to read the pattern and answer any questions and go over everything. And then there are Zooms on Saturdays. So for the very last clue, I'm going to be uploading a previously streamed or like previously recorded piece because I will actually be out of town teaching in Philadelphia. So the last Zoom is going to be 2 weeks after the last clue. So I will also get you that link as well. So, but don't worry, there's tons of support, and I see a bunch of completely fantastic moderators in the chat. So we're knitting together in my Ravelry group, and then also there's a little bit in my Facebook group as well. And I see Kathleen. Hi, Kathleen. Kathleen is Daffy and Pooh in my Ravelry group, and she's an amazing moderator. I'm just kind of looking, I probably am missing people, but I see a lot of familiar faces, and I'm really excited to see you. Okay, so there were some questions. One of them that I had was whether or not I'll be recording the Zooms. I will not. So I only record the YouTubes. Zoom doesn't really record that type of hangout well at all. And also, lots of people don't want to be recorded. So it's just going to be kind of a hangout, get together, like a just, you know, knitting group basically on Saturdays. So I put the link into the notes at the bottom. And there was some weirdness with the link that I had in the pattern clue. I don't know why, but the one I've tested like a gazillion times. I've tested the one that is in the notes in under this particular live, and it actually goes to a registration. So I ask you to register so I can remind you that the Zoom is going to happen. Basically, that's about it. So yeah, it's lovely to see you. Okay. Alrighty. So, and by the way, behind me, these are two past mysteries. This one is last year's. It's called Falderal, and then this one over here is Moon Shadows. And I'm wearing my Te Ijete shawl. So that's Taygete. Okay, I'm just going to transition over here to my hands, and I am going to go through um, the whole clue and explain how all of the techniques work and everything. And if you're seeing this and you do not have the pattern, I also have a link in the notes below where you can actually get the pattern. So you won't really be able to follow this unless you have the pattern. Okay, so yes, I totally agree. Kathleen says it's Mercury. Yeah, I mean, Mercury always gets me every year. So I will actually be watching. I'll be watching the comments, but I may miss something. I will try to get everybody's questions. It's possible I might miss something. We'll see. Anyway. And by the way, everybody's saying hello. I am in northern Nevada, so I'm on the eastern slope of the Sierra Nevadas, and so I'm like about 5 minutes from the California border. So okay, so here we go. So that's pretty far away from Las Vegas, which is what people usually think about when you think of Nevada. Okay, and Terry is here too. So Terry is also a moderator on Ravelry. Okay. So, Way Leads On to Way is the theme for this year. And you can see right up at the top here links. Unfortunately, I do not know why this Zoom link did not work. It pulled up the meeting and it showed the description and everything, but then it wouldn't let people register. So I don't know what happened there. So, my sort of tradition for these is to have just a little tiny versy type thing on each one of these, and they all come together at the very end of the mystery. So, to begin with, this clue is going to be worked in color one. So, I did see somebody asking about whether or not they should start with the dark color or the light color. I started with a darker color, but when you decide which one to start with, I would personally choose the one that you like the best next to your face. So what if like your skin tone? Okay, so right below here, and then Janet says the Zoom link worked. That is, I don't know. Mercury, I think, is the only explanation for this. It's very weird. Okay, so you'll notice that I have a little note up here. If you have worked the partial clue from Avert for Keeping Warm, the warm kit, Avert for Keeping Warm kit, begin with row 31. So there was a kit and it included two different colors of yarn plus the shawl pin plus the pattern. So if you had that partial clue from here, you are going to bypass the first 30 rows. So you can see this is the second page up here. So you're going to be starting right here on row 31. So, and it's a little bit different. So you'll notice um, it starts a little bit differently from the previous 30 rows. Okay, so back to the beginning here. Alrighty. So I do have enough yarn in here so that you can do a modest gauge swatch. And when I give the gauge for this, I'm giving you a blocked gauge. So when I block, I always wet it and then I stretch it and pin it out to dry. So however you're going to treat your final object, that is how you're going to treat your swatch in order to measure it. So once you unpin it, it will snap back just a little bit, or sometimes it might snap back a lot. So this is mostly like, obviously it's not for fit or anything like that, but it's mostly so that you don't have way too small finished object or run out of yarn, either one. So let me see. So I had the Wisteria and Berries and Cream kit from Verb, and the Wisteria is darker, but it's not hugely darker. But okay. So over here you will see I have a list of helpful videos for you. I will also add these to the playlist. I was running a little bit behind and I didn't add all of these, but these are going to all be really helpful in case you need to go back and just kind of see one of the techniques really fast. So there is a bobble. That's my favorite bobble. This is the same bobble that I use in the pattern. And then this cast on here is a little tiny bit different in the tutorial video because I think I'm only casting on 5 stitches, whereas in this particular shawl, I'm casting on 7 stitches. No, I'm casting on 9 stitches. Sorry. Okay. And then stitch marker management, that's going to help you once you start on the charts and into the lace and inserting a lifeline. So a lifeline can be incredibly helpful. And that is to help you in case you're feeling nervous about working on lace, like you might make a mistake and have to rip it out. So having a lifeline is a good idea if you're feeling uncomfortable, and it kind of makes you feel a little bit more relaxed. Okay, so the setup is worked entirely in C1, and I will go back and demonstrate all of these later on. I'm just going to kind of cruise through the pattern here in case you've never knit one of my patterns. So you'll see that it says the pattern up here, and then this list of instructions. And then on the next page, these instructions continue. So these are all written instructions. These are not charted. Anything that is charted will be called out like this. It will say work chart A. So I don't want you to accidentally be working the same instructions because you didn't know that it was included in the chart. So they are definitely called out. So after you have completed all of these written instructions, then you'll be going on to chart A. So if you take a look here, I have 2 types of charts included in this, but it is the same chart. This is just for your preference. So for the first one, this is kind of what came to be known as what you see is what you knit. And this is the key for that first type of chart. So you can see here, it's this chart that has the written instructions underneath. So this chart is basically a charted representation of written instructions. So when you're working it, you don't have to reverse the symbols in your head when you're going through this. They're just going to be worked as they fall. So in other words, if you see a knit stitch like this, it will always be a knit stitch no matter where it is on the chart. So if it's on the back side, this does not turn into a purl stitch. It will always, always be worked as a knit stitch. And then I have down here symbols that are used in the written instructions. So this is mostly going to come into play when you're working on, when you're using the written instructions over here, if you want to use those instead of the chart. So this is how I do my my repeats up here. So my repeats are going to be in brackets. And then inside the repeat, if any part of that is repeated also, those will be in parentheses. And then this is not used in this pattern, this part here, but I do put that in everything so that you'll know. Okay, so then we have the abbreviations here and some instructions of how to do it. So the instructions following this will assume that your stitches are mounted with the right or leading leg in front and the left leg in back. So that's really important that you know how you knit for lace because a lot of these are directional stitches. So if you get to knit 2 together, that is a directional stitch. And an SSK is a directional stitch. So the SSK leans to the left and the knit 2 together leans to the right. So it's super important that you know whether your leading leg is in front of the needle or in back of the needle because it will affect the way these stitches work. So I will talk a little tiny bit about that later too. Okay. So here is chart A, and chart A is presented in three different ways, and you get to choose whichever way you would like to use it. So this first one is what you see is what you knit. So down here where it looks like you have these pearls here, this is actually stockinette stitch because when you turn over, you're going to be working these as purl stitches. So then when you look at the right side, this whole area down here, that is all stockinette. And up at the top here is garter stitch. So you can see how this is different amounts of repeats here. It's one chart, but it is separated into three different pieces because the stitches increase so much so quickly on the side here. That is going to increase really fast, and I didn't want it to be difficult to read. So the bottom part here, you're going to work this part 8 times, and then this middle part is worked 10 times in the middle, and then up at the top here, it's worked 12 times in the middle here. So when you look at the chart, you're going to see all of these dark spaces over to the side here. Those are no stitches. So there's literally no stitch there at all. So there's nothing to slip. There's like nothing there at all. So you're going to work these 2 edge stitches over here and then scoot right over to this first colored stitch. So my patterns have these stripes in them, and those are just every 5 stitches so that it's a little bit of a counting aid for you. So it's not as important down at the bottom here, but when you get up at the top here and there's kind of a larger area of stitches with no patterning, sometimes it really, really helps to have those stripes in there because then you're able to count better. And you can see over here, there's also a no stitch symbol. This is a no stitch column. And that is because up at the top here, this row includes an increase in this repeat area here. So along here, you're just going to completely and totally ignore this all the way up until you get up to this point up here. So the other thing I want to point out, so this is sometimes a little funky right here next to the repeat line. I use stitch markers and I always encourage people to use stitch markers, but these repeat lines are only to mark repeats. So that means that if you do use stitch markers, you are going to have to borrow stitches when you see this double decrease here right next to this line. So you can use these lines for stitch markers, but you are going to have to kind of watch out and make sure everything is centered. So let me show you what I mean here. So at the bottom here, we are going to end up with 3 stitches on the side and 1 stitch. So that's 4 stitches. 5, 6, 7 stitches is what we're going to end up with. So let's see how many stitches row 3 uses. So we have 7 stitches to work with. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then this is going to use 3 stitches. So that this area here requires 8 stitches. So that means you're going to need to borrow a stitch from this first repeat across here. And every time you see this up the side here where it's right next to a repeat line, that is going to happen. So you're going to be borrowing all the way across. So again, you'll be borrowing here. So it's going to go all the way across for all the 8 times you work that. And same up here when you see all of these um, double decreases, it's going to, all your markers are going to move all the way across the chart. Okay. So down at the bottom here is another way to read this, to use this chart. If you don't like charts, this is completely written out. So it's exactly the same as this chart. A little bit different sometimes just because on a chart, I want to make sure that everything is stacking up properly so that you can see all the patterning here. But in the written instructions, sometimes it works better just to condense everything. So this can look a little bit different, but it is the same as the chart up here. And then for people who like to use, this is a more traditional type of charting for like for textures and other types of things. Basically, what you see is what you get. So if you take a look here, you can see that this actually looks like stockinette fabric because on the in the key here, you'll see that on the right side, a knit symbol is a knit. And when it appears on a wrong side row, it's going to be purled. So any of these that appear on both right and wrong side rows, those are going to change on the wrong side row. Okay, and in the back here, I had just a little tiny cast on some photographs here so people could start the pre-clue, or you could have like a little bit of a reminder of what I'm going to show you next. Okay, so for people who have never read charts before, this is a really good way to get started when you have a pattern that has both the written instructions and the chart, because you can compare the two of them and make sure that you're right. So if you're going to use the chart, here are the rules. So first of all, it starts at the bottom. So you're going to start the chart at the very bottom here and work up. So when you're working a chart, it's best to, let me put this across here so you don't see anything peeking through. It's best to cover all the information above so you can see what's below here as you move up the chart, because you're going to be adding to your pattern as you move up. And being able to see how the pattern is developing is really important. That's going to help keep you from making any mistakes. Okay, when you start working, you're going to go from the number to the other side. So that would be on the right side rows, you're going to move from right to left. And then on the wrong side rows, you're going to move from left to right. So you're going to go back and forth all the way up the charts like this, back and forth up the charts. And as you go, you'll be able to see how the motif will stack up on itself as it goes up. So this motif is a little, it's a little off kilter. So you'll see as you move up, then it's going to wave a little back and forth. So that is normal. If that's what you're getting, that is totally normal. Okay, so just kind of looking, and some of you are talking about how you read charts. So this is one way, like I like to put a post-it on my stuff. There's also, you can use GoodNotes or you can use Knit Companion, where you can import all of the charts and use like a little highlighter to help work it. And the free version actually does have the highlighter in there. And I think it's kind of cool to be able to work all the way up using the highlighter. So, okay. So let's kind of start on this. Get all of my stuff together here. Okay. So I am going to show you the cast on, and I'm a continental knitter. So for continental, this is much less fiddly than it is if you're an English style knitter. So I would suggest, even if you are an English style knitter, that doing this in the way that I show you is probably going to be a little bit easier than if you try to hold your working yarn in your right hand. So the first thing I've done is, here's my tail over to the right side here. And I've left a nice amount of tail. It doesn't have to be huge amounts, but just enough to be able to kind of sew it in. And then this is the yarn that goes to my ball of yarn. So I'm going to hold this in both of my hands. So in this side, I have the tail in my right hand, and on this side, I have the working yarn in my left hand. So don't worry about this loop being really loose right now. That's going to be how it looks until you sort of pull that tail tight. So I'm going to grasp my yarn and just pinch it in between my thumb and my middle finger. And then over on this side, I have my working yarn tensioned. I'm going to work into that loop. And it's really important. This working yarn is over the top here. So I'm going to work into the loop and make a knit stitch. So that's my first stitch. Now I'm going to yarn over my needle, and that's my second stitch. Back in, there's my third stitch, and over the needle. So now I have 4 stitches, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So this is what it's going to look like after you've just cast on. And you can just pull this tail a little bit to kind of make this a little less loopy. So that just pull that down a little bit. And then that is what your cast on is going to look like. Okay, so once that is done, you're going to have 9 stitches as right here. And then your setup row. So this doesn't have to be this tight even. It can be looser and it will tighten up later. So your setup row is going to be knit 1 through the back loop, and that will twist your stitch. And then we're going to purl 7 across. So the edges of this are going to be a twisted stitch. And that is going to make the edge nice and neat so that you don't have to slip any stitches or anything like that at the beginning. So that will actually make your shawl have a little bit of a problem blocking out if you do any slip stitches on the edge. So that knit 1 through the back loop on the side is meant to tidy everything up for you so that in the end, you'll be able to block it out. The places where a shawl is most vulnerable are the cast on, the sides, and the bind off, because the middle part is going to be kind of loose because of the larger needle used for this type of work. So you want to be able to stretch it super, super, super hard. And this edge is going to help you. And then I have a question here. Okay, yes. Judy says, She's an English style knitter and found it challenging, and so she used a crochet hook method, and that works really well as also. So if I have a crochet hook lying around next to me, I will actually show you what she means. I'm gonna just dig in my notions bag for a moment here and see if I can pull one out. Hopefully I have one, but my crochet hooks have been sort of migrating all over the place for a while. So if I don't find one, I will actually do a little tiny video to show you what that would look like. Um, it's not looking good for the crochet hook. But, oop, wait, I do. I have one. I have a little tiny one. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So to do, I don't knit English style very well, and I don't know which hand you are um, holding it in, but for crochet hooks, usually when you crochet, you do actually hold your yarn in your left hand. So it's going to be pretty much the same. And this is how you start lots of crochet projects. So if you've ever started a granny square or anything like that, it's basically the same type of thing where you're going to be crocheting into a ring. Like I think they call it a magic ring is what it's called. So a crochet hook may really help a lot to do that. If you've ever done a magic ring using a crochet hook. Okay, so let me see. I'm just checking to make sure. So Nancy asked, can you use a slip knot on the needle instead, as long as you can still pull the tail to tighten up the loop? Absolutely, you could do that. As long as you can pull it and tighten it, it will work. I do suggest fewer knots. So let's see. Let me see about trying to engineer this. Let's see if this would work. So let's do a slip knot, and then I'm going to do one loop here. So this is just one backward loop. So now I'm going to turn this over. So I have a slip knot, and then I have that backwards loop. And I'm going to show you what I think I might do if I were an English style knitter and it didn't work for me continental style. Okay, have to get this situated here. I would use this loop. So I'm going to go into the loop and knit one, yarn forward. So that's going to be my first yarn over, and then back. So there's my first 3 stitches. Bring my yarn forward again. So that's another yarn over. So now I have 5 stitches. I'm going to do another knit into that stitch. Oops. Then bring my yarn forward again. So now I have one more stitch to knit into that first little stitch. Okay. So I think I have my 9 stitches, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 stitches, and they were all worked in that second stitch there, like that one stitch. So I'm going to take my slip stitch off of my needle and then just pull it out. So now you have basically the same thing as you would have had otherwise here. And you can tighten this with the tail right here, and you don't have that extra knot. So now you can just start going with the setup row after this. And that will give you exactly the same look as I showed you before. Okay, so I'm going to take that off. Alrighty, so I do want to talk a little bit about the make ones in here. I have a make one pearl in here. I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, so remember before when I was talking to you about how your stitches should be mounted. So this is what I meant. If you look at your stitches, this right leg, so the right or leading leg part of the stitch should be in front of the needle, and then that back part should be in back. So if you don't have them like that, and you're not sure how to translate the instructions into the way that you have them mounted, then my suggestion is just to remount them and then follow the instructions the way they're written, so until you're used to that more. So this is just my Franken swatch that I used to demonstrate. This is basically no spoilers today. Okay, so now if I go through the back loop, so here's knitting through the front loop. And it doesn't matter how you're working, if you're working continental or English, this is always through the front loop here. And this is always through the back loop in the back there. So when your stitches are mounted with a right leg in front and a left leg in back, knitting through the back loop twists the stitch. So I like to do these twisted edges because it's tidier, but also it's still nice and stretchy. So you'll be able to work that out and block it out really well. Okay, so let's take a look at a make one pearl. So for a make one pearl, for any of the make ones, unless I specify make one right or make one left, feel free to use the one that is easiest for you. So usually that is going to be a make one left if you're knitting, and that is completely fine. Unless it is absolutely specified, it's your choice. So for the pearl, we're still going to be picking up in the middle here, the bar in the middle of the stitch of these two columns. And I'm going to put that up on my needle. So I want to twist this stitch. So you can see I have my right leg in the back and my left leg in front. So I'm just going to work that front loop as a purl so it will twist. And that is how you do a make one purl. Okay, I think most of the rest of this stuff is fairly self-explanatory. It's mostly knit and purl stitches. So you'll start seeing these little brackets here. So whenever you see those, you're just going to repeat this area inside the brackets, however many times it specifies. So here it's going to be 6 times. So you'll knit one, purl two, knit one, purl two, knit one, purl two, 6 times. So where it says purl to one stitch before the end, that means there will be one stitch left on your needle. Okay, so let's take a look down here at, so let's see, I'm kind of looking, I'm keeping half of an eye on the chat. So I hope I did not miss anybody. Okay, 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 awesome. All right, so you can see here that on row 13, there's a KFBF on at the beginning stitch, And then at the end, there's KFBF, knit one through the back loop, which looks like a mistake, but I swear it's not. So let me show you why that is. So when you do a knit front, back, front, okay, so this is what it's going to look like. You're going to knit into the front of the stitch and then into the back loop. You're just keeping that stitch on your needle as you're going. And then the last stitch that you work into it is going to be into the front again. So that is what it's going to look like. And you can see here, both of those stitches are added on the left side. So if you have a whole line of KFBFs on the right side, all of the added stitches are going to be in between the first stitch and the second stitch. But if you have it on the end here, then all of those added stitches are going to be to the left. So it will give you a different look. So what I like to do is I want to place all those stitches in between. So that makes it actually look like it's even. It's mirrored. So I'm going to do another knit front, back, and then front again. And you can see the stitches are added to the left of the stitch. And so then that end is going to be just a knit one through the back loop. So that is going to look much more symmetrical. So I'm just going to go back here. I'm going to work across now and show this to you English style. So don't mind me while I kind of zip across here. And as you're going, this may happen where you're going to get that loop. That's okay. Sorry, I had to cough there for a moment. Okay, so here we go, English style, KFBF, knit into the front, and then into the back, and then into the front again. And same deal as you go across. I'm just going to knit those. So that's going to add 2 stitches onto every side every time you do that. And then the little make ones are adding some in the middle. So even though this starts out, it's going to look a little bit lumpy up at the top like crescent shawls often do. It will have enough extra stitches in the middle so it will block out. So here is another one, knit into the front and then into the back and then into the front. And there is actually a video on this as well, so a little tiny tutorial that is in your pattern. So if you take a look in here, those are on the front pages. You'll see the KFBF here. Okay. And also, I did see somebody talking about rewatching this later on. You can, this is going to stay here, so you can watch this as many times as you want. So you're good. So you'll notice that through row 12, we have a different type of shaping, and then on row 13, the shaping changes, and that is correct. So that is correct. Don't worry about that. So once you're done with all of this, you're going to work on chart A. Okay, so let me see. I want to make sure I got everything that's up in the top here. Okay, so let's do a bobble. because I know everybody loves baubles. This is my favorite bauble. I think these are fun and perky, and I love doing them. Okay, so I'll do this first. I'll do it continental. So I'm going to knit one, yarn over, knit one, yarn over, and then knit one into one stitch. So I think it's really fun to knit this backwards, but I'm just going to turn this over and purl it, um, just the way the instructions say. But it's a good time to practice um, knitting backwards. Okay, so here is the bauble so far. And I'm going from these instructions right in here in the abbreviations. Okay, so I am going to slip as if to purl. So when I do that, when I slip as if to purl, that's going to keep my stitch oriented exactly the same way that it is on the needle over here. So I'm putting my needle in like I was going to purl it, but I'm not going to purl it. So I'm going to slip 2 times as if to purl. And now I am going to knit one. So now I have these 2 slip stitches and that knit one. I am going to stick that back onto my left needle and take this second stitch and slip it over the top. And now I'm going to slip it back to my right needle, slip the second stitch over the top, slip that back to my left needle, second stitch over the top, and then back to my right needle and second stitch over the top. So what you're going to get is this like kind of perky little bauble here. And I usually just give this a little bit of an extra yank when I start working over here, so that will pop it farther up. So basically what's happening here is what makes it perky more is that in the back here, you've only actually worked that middle stitch. So there isn't the type of float that you would generally have with a bauble. So if you give it a little bit of a yank, that's going to make it really pop out and look nice and fat and round. Okay, so now let's do this. I'll do this English style. So I'm going to do a knit and a yarn over, knit, yarn over. It's okay, Kathleen, if that's beyond your capability. It's beyond my capability to knit English style very well, and you do that really well. So we all have our things going on here. Okay, so now I have my 5 stitches here, and I am going to purl across, and purling English style is beyond me at the moment, so I'm just going to purl continental across here. And now I'm going to turn it over. Okay. So my yarn is going to go on the back here. It's staying on the back. Okay, so I'm going to slip as if to purl, slip as if to purl, and I'm going to knit that. And you don't have to be loose with that middle stitch. Definitely like you want some tension there. Okay, then I'm just going to slip that back to my left needle and do my thing here. So just like I did when I was doing a continental style back here. Okay. So at this point, again, I'm just going to kind of yank on it a little bit. So it will pop the bobble into the front. You shouldn't have to strangle them. Um, they should pop okay to the front. So there you go. That's what those bobbles look like. It's always have to, good to have perky bobbles. Okay, so let's go on. I'm just going to go through the rest of the abbreviations here. We're not using bind off in this particular clue. So there's color 1 and color 2, cast on you know, knit you know. So let's do a knit 2 together. So a knit 2 together with your both of your stitches with the right leg in front and the left leg in back. You're going to insert the needle through the second stitch first and then through the first stitch and knit. And it's a single decrease. It leans to the right. Okay, so now we've got knit front and back. So you're going to knit into the front of the stitch and then knit into the back of the stitch. So very like the KFBF, but this is only a single increase, so it's a knit front and back. Okay, then we have the KFBF, and I showed you that one, but I guess I'll show it again. What the heck? All right, so front, back, and front. So both the knit front and back and the KFBF, both of those are going to make a stitch to the right. I'm sorry, to the left of the origin stitch here. So one stitch and then two stitches there. Okay, and then we have a make one. So as I was saying before, I like to do just a make one left. So I'm going to pull the bar up in between stitches, place it up here on my needle, and work that stitch. So the important thing is to twist the bar there so it won't leave a hole. And now I showed you the make one purl, but let's just do that again. So with yarn in front, we're going to pull that bar up onto the left needle. And I usually just leave my, my needle in there, and I'm just going to purl it. I leave my needle in as much as I can. It's just quicker to do that way. Okay. And then passing the slip stitch over, basically, you slip a stitch. That's just, you're just going to pass it over like this. And that's all that means. Okay, let's do an SK2P. So there are quite a few of those on the chart. So this is assuming that your right leg is in front and your left leg is in back. You're going to slip as if to knit, because that's going to reorient your stitch so that the right leg is in back and the left leg is in front. Then you're going to knit those two stitches together and pass the slipped stitch over. So that stitch is reoriented so that this is not a twisted stitch. If we didn't reorient that first stitch, this would look twisted, and we don't want that to look twisted. We want it just to look nice and open. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you something now. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to kind of back out of this. I'm going to do that SK2P one more time, but I'm going to show you what it would look like to work it around your stitch marker in case you do stitch markers. So in the chart, you'll see along the side, we were talking about those double decreases. So I like to kind of do a shortcut for moving markers. So I just did a yarn over. That's not part of the SK2P, but I just wanted an increase to offset the decrease. So I'm going to slip as if to knit. And this is what it would be like if I had to borrow a stitch from my next repeat. I'm going to put my needle through the stitch on the left side and the stitch on the right side of the marker without putting it through the marker. Make a stitch. So I knit those two together. Now I'm going to pass that stitch over, and I still have everything still on my left needle. And once I've passed that over, I'm going to put my needle through my stitch marker and pull it off the needle. And that is how I work around my stitch markers. Okay, so let's see what else I have. Okay, so I'm just going to take this marker out. Okay, so I'm going to do an SSK. There are many ways to do it. I'm just going to show you like the usual way. Um, Slip as if to knit, slip as if to knit, and then both of those go back onto your left needle. And you can just keep your right needle in both the stitches and knit those two together through the back loop here. Oops. And that is a left leaning decrease. And let me see. So the rest of them we talked about. This is a yarn over. That's what you would do continental style for a yarn over. It looks a little bit different if you're doing it English style. So if you're going to do it English style, you're going to bring your yarn forward, and then whatever stitch you work next, instead of just taking it back between the needles, you're going to take it back over the top of your needle to do the stitch. So knit one, yarn over, knit one. And a yarn over is only a yarn over. It does not include the knit stitch after the yarn over. It's just simply a hole in your fabric. Okay, so I did have in here, let's see, I think I have in here, let me find this. Okay, so I have a yarn over, I forgot to go over this. In here I have a double yarn over. So this is in 31, and I want to show you what that looks like. So, so Carolyn Middleton, do you ever knit back front instead of knit front back? I do. So there are two types of KFB. There's the knit front back and then the knit back front. So if you knit front back, you're going to have a little purl bump. And if you knit back front, you're not going to have a purl bump. So let me show you what I mean by that. So you can see back over here, you had those little bumps. So that's really good for garter fabric or for fabric where it just doesn't matter. So on the edges, like I have garter edges. If you knit back, that's through the back loop and then through the front loop. You don't have that little bump here. And I always specify that, especially when I have stripes, because you don't get that along with it. It's it's pretty low profile. So you can actually use both in this particular case. If you would rather use the knit back and front, that would be fine too. And let me see. Oh, I think I did. Thank you, Mel. Is there a way to fix the bubbles if you didn't yank them tight when you make them? Okay, so yes, you could. So I am of the opinion that it's not cheating to go back and um, do something to your fabric if you don't like it. So I will show you. work back the other way and show you how I would fix that. Okay, so let me go back here. Okay, I'm going to show you a double yarn over. I split my yarn here. Hang on just a sec. Okay, so this is one of the ways that I increased stitches in here. So this is just going to be 2 wraps. This is what a double yarn over looks like here. It's just 2 wraps. And when you have these 2 wraps, this is actually just a big hole. So there's no differentiation in here. Like once you have worked this whole area, a double yarn over just looks like a hole. So let's go down here and take a look at how to work multiple stitches. Okay. The other thing about this is when you have a double yarn over, it's okay if you drop one. So what if you're going along and you're like, oh my God, I dropped a yarn over? It's okay. It's still a big hole. It's not a problem. So just put it back up if you want to, or don't. It doesn't matter at all. It's just going to end up a big hole. That's what you're looking for. So here is how you're going to work multiple stitches. Here's how you would work 3 stitches into a double yarn over. Okay, you're going to purl and then knit and then purl. And that's what you're going to do. Just simple as that. And let me show you that. I'll show you what it looks like English style. So it doesn't make a huge difference if you do knit, purl, knit, or purl, knit, purl. So here's purl, and then you're going to bring your yarn to the back and knit a stitch, and then your yarn is going to come to the front, and then you're going to purl a stitch. Oops, there we go. And all you want is those 3 stitches in that big hole. And let me just go on farther here and you can see what that looks like. Okay, so that's all it looks like. So you just have a hole. And if you dropped one of the yarn overs, don't worry about it. It's completely and totally fine. Okay, so we're gonna do a bobble lift, yes. So let's get down here to the bobbles and we'll try a bobble lift. So mine are usually pretty perky. So let's see. I've only attempted a bobble lift once. So this is like bobble surgery here. Got to get those bobbles looking nice and perky. Okay, so here I am at the end here. So I think this is what I would do. I would just bring my yarn forward and around here and then back. So I brought my yarn forward, I slipped my bobble, I brought my yarn back, and now I'm going to bring it over here to the back again and purl. So I just did a little kind of a bobble sling to make it perkier in the front. Okay, so again, what I did was I brought my yarn to the back here, that's the front side. I slipped the stitch at the top of the bobble, and then I brought my yarn back. So I want to make sure that the yarn goes around the bottom of the bobble here and not around the top. So I brought my yarn back under the bobble, and now I've slipped the bobble stitch back here, and here's my yarn, and gonna pull this a little tight and just purl that stitch now. So I've kind of strangled the bobble on the next row. And now just purl that. And you get to the end here and we'll take a look at our lifted bobbles. Okay, let's turn over. So you can see now they're actually more lifted than they were. So you just want to make sure that you get your yarn underneath here so you can kind of see underneath there where the yarn is. But the bobble will hide that. You'll just see it if you look really closely, but it will hide that. It's kind of like an underwire. So we have little underwires for our bobbles now. There we go. And they're nice and perky. Alrighty, so let's take a look back here. Um, I think I pretty much went over this. So you can see over here also there's the KFBF on the right side, and then over here on the left side, it's one stitch before the end. And this is actually three stitches because um, that that ends up being three stitches there. So that's where these increases come from. So when you're working this, you're going to work to this um, side of the repeat box and then back to this side of the repeat box. So this area in here is 8 times, and then you finish the row. And then up here, that's 10, and up here is 12. And then, so I'm glad I'm, I'm glad everybody liked the bobble lift. Okay, so I think I got everything for this clue. So I hope I found I hope I got everybody's questions. I think I did. So, but if not, let me know, and then later on I can answer them. I can make you like a little reel or something like that, or I can answer them next time, or make you a little tiny video or something. So anyway, yeah. So don't be a stranger. There is lots of camaraderie and fun in my Ravelry group and my Facebook groups. And I'm also on Instagram and here, of course, on YouTube. So if you have any problems, there are so many great people around in the community who will like jump right on it and they'll probably compete to help you because everybody is really awesome. So let me see. Um, I think I have everything, but if not, let me know. And have fun with the clue. Have a great weekend, and may your baubles be nice and perky. I will see you again very soon. And until then, I'll see you around social media. So take care, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you later. Hopefully tomorrow. Come hang out with me on Zoom. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.